Then I remember. And hello, Abigail. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course.
Gabriella, I guess we should wait a couple more minutes before we get started.
Hello, Professor. Okay.
While we're waiting, make sure that you have your own spreadsheet for this particular project up on your screen. And if I can get a hand raise when you have the spreadsheet up on your screen, that would be helpful to me. All right, thank you, Abigail. Thank you, David. Damaris, thank you. So we're just waiting to hear. Gabriella, can you get this Excel workbook up on your screen?
I am doing it right now. Wait me a second.
And Kaylee, thank you. All right. Okay. Is there anyone that cannot see a workbook on the screen? This would be an Excel workbook on the screen. It's the worksheet called MPG data. If you cannot see it, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move on. All right, I'm going to assume that you can all see this. And this is the MPG data worksheet. Hopefully by this time you've been able to apply some very basic filters, and you can tell that filters have been applied to this data because there are little funnels on the columns that have been filtered. So we begin tonight's lesson on 5F. The assumption here is that you have filtered all of the data that you imported or downloaded from the internet, and you have kind of made it your own. And now we're ready to take this information and further filter it so that it meets some very specific criteria. So the first thing it wants us to do, and I'm going to make my screen pretty small here so you can see the whole thing. It wants us to copy all of this information that has been filtered down. These essentially, you're filtering down to 47 lines. It wants us to copy that and paste it onto another worksheet. And they already gave you a blank worksheet, I believe, called My Car Data. So before we begin, I'm going to create one over here, a new one, and I'm going to call it, because I have this already, I'm going to call it VCD for Vicky's Car Data. Okay. Now, over here, I've got this all highlighted. So now I'm ready to copy it. Because it's highlighted, I can press the Control key and the letter C. And you notice that we get the lines all the way around here, indicating that I've copied this to the clipboard. I'm coming over here to A1, and before I paste, it says to me in F that it wants me to keep the source column widths. In other words, we did a lot of changing of the widths on the MPG data worksheet, and we want to maintain those when we paste it over to this new worksheet. So we're going to come up here to paste, and we will paste with this keep source formatting. And there's our data. Let me go back here
So
for a moment
sorry.
and
So
look.
sorry, Professor. I am a little confused. When I take it, the spreadsheet, it's not show me the same information than you.
You have you done anything with this one at all yet?
I open right now for Canvas. I download the charter, but I didn't see what you are showing.
Right, because we're jumping in at instruction 5F. So what I would suggest to
Okay.
you,
I have to do some stuff early.
correct. But what I would
Okay.
suggest is you go ahead and watch what I'm doing, because I'm recording it, and you can go back and watch this when you get to 5F.
Okay, and you put on Canvas the video for this explanation. Perfect, thank you.
Right. Okay, so back to where we were here. So I've copied the data over, and there it is with the headers. And if everything went well, I should have, scrolling down, 47 rows of information. So that is 5F. Moving on to 6, it says it wants me to copy essentially copy the header row, and that would be this row right here. So I'm going to highlight it, and then I'll use my Control C to copy, and then it wants me to paste it down here at row 50, because this is the area where I'm going to define my criteria. Right here, it says type the word criteria. Now, this word is not absolutely necessary. This word could be anything. It could be table, it could be lamp, it could be glass, it could be speaker. But it's kind of a nice header to tell me as the user what is below the actual data that I want to really search and seek out. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm typing it, but then it wants me to apply a style. And so I will go back to my home tab, and I will go over to cell styles, and it says use accent 3, here she be, and now I've applied the style. Okay, we are now on 6D, where we're actually setting up the criteria. So here's where we are going to come in underneath some of these. We're going to consider these are now field names. And what we're essentially doing is we're doing a query. We're going to query all of this information up here. So right here below CERT, we're going to type CA because that's what we're looking for. And then over here for highway miles per gallon, we're going to use the greater than symbol, 80. Okay, so we are looking for all the vehicles that meet this certification region of CA with greater than 80 miles per gallon. Now, it's important to realize here, this is an advanced filter. And if you have things that are on the same row, which this is CA, it's in row 51, and this is greater than 80, it's in row 51. That means that the cars that are going to get chosen have to meet both of those pieces of criteria. If this particular item right here was down here one row like that, it would be an or condition. It would say it's either this or it's this. And the likelihood is you get a lot more choices, you get a lot more data that's going to be extracted because it's an or condition. But when it's up here on the same line, that's an and condition. Okay, any questions on that? So all we've done is we've built a little certification or a criteria area using the certification and highway miles per gallon. Now, again, I could go for transmission auto 1, and it would have to meet that criteria and this criteria and this, but I'm just going for these two pieces. All right, now we're going to go down here and type filtered data. Filtered data, we are in A53. Again, we're going to apply a cell style, same one that we used before, accent 3. You can see that it's cut off. So in 6G, it says auto fit this column. So what we do is we come up here on the line that is between the A and the B, and we get that two-way arrow. And if we get it right there on the line, you see how it has to be right there on the line or it changes. We double click and it makes the column as wide as it needs to be to display the widest piece of information. We can do that anywhere on any one of these columns. Anytime we hover there between the column names. Likewise, we can do it over here on rows. It can make the rows as high or as short as they need to be to display the information. So it's kind of a nice tool, AutoFit. Okay, now we're ready to use the advanced filtering. Woohoo! So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially highlight these two rows. We don't have to do this, but I like to do it just for kicks and grins. Then I know what I'm dealing with. And then we're going up to the data tab, and we're going over here to where we have this section called sort and filter. We're clicking on advanced. Now, what we want to do here is we want the data that we've that we're looking for to come down here into A54. So clearly we don't want to filter the list in place because it would write over everything that we already have. So we want to copy to another location. The list that we're pulling from is actually, I'm just going to delete this, is actually A1 to Q47. That's the list that we're going to try to pull our information from. Our criteria is actually A50 right here, over here to Q51. Now we're going to stop here for a minute and I'll explain this. 50 colon Q51. You recall that I said a little bit earlier, I talked about the fact that you could have an OR condition. So if this was an OR condition, my criteria range would encompass another row. It would encompass row 52. Do you all see what I'm talking about there? And you also notice we don't take into account this header because this header is just information for us. It's not information that has to be there. If the word was pickle, it wouldn't matter. What's important is the criteria range. And then what's also important is where do we want to copy to? Well, we want to copy right down here to A4. And you notice when it does it, if I click on the cells, it makes them absolute cell references. Now, this is going to work whether you use absolute cell addressing or whether you use this relative cell addressing, which is what I used up here. This is still going to work regardless. So if I click and drag to get the list range, it's going to show up and look a little bit more complicated. It's going to look a lot more like this. If I click and drag to do the criteria range, let me come back here and show you what I mean. I'll just click and drag to show the criteria range. Look how much more complex it looks. Any questions on this? Let's stop for a moment. Okay, so we're ready to go. Okay, and if all went well, which it did, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 records that meet all of the criteria. So 12 records were copied from these 46 records up here. 12 records met this criteria. And I can change this criteria. I could look for other things. For example, I could take this and say, can take that out. I can say, I want electricity. I cannot type. Okay, now I'm going to do another advanced filter. This time I'm going to copy to another location. My list hasn't changed. My criteria range hasn't changed, but I think what I'll do is I'll copy this up to Q1 because I can put it wherever I want. And if we come over here, we should see it. Oh, I have stuff there. Never mind. Let me try that again. Let's try this. Copy to another location. And let's try R1. And you notice that it copies a bunch of information up for me to R1. Isn't that nice? Isn't that cool? So there, it feels very annoying when you're doing this advanced filtering, but the ability to pull records out and put them in another location because they meet certain criteria is very, very fun. Any questions on that? So I can create all kinds of criteria. And see, I haven't messed with the stuff I copied here. I can copy information from this original list range all over this worksheet. Any questions so far? So we are now done with number 6. Now it says on number 7, format the filtered data as a table. So down here, this data, they want us to format it as a table. And the way we do that is we can highlight it, highlight the data, and then we can go up here to insert, and then come over here to table. And it says, where is the data for your table? Well, it's what I highlighted it. And then it does have headers, which is that first line. Click OK, and lo and behold, I have a table. Then I can apply a style, and this is the style it wants me to apply up here. It automatically created a new tab for me. As soon as I created a table, I now get a new tab where I can choose a style. Now it says insert, we're on number 8. Insert a new column to the left of the greenhouse gas score. And so what it wants us to do is come up here. It says add it. He says be sure to add a column to the worksheet, not just the table. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out here and insert a new column to the left of the greenhouse gas score. We just clicked right here and right-clicked to get the menu, and then we clicked on insert. And now we have a new column. And down here, we are going to copy the values from O55 all the way down to here. We're going to copy them. You can do a Control-C, and then we're going to put them right next here with, we just click and do a Control-V to paste, and now the values have been duplicated in a second column, and that is 8A. On 8B, it wants us to take this column label and change it to be CMB MPG icon. All right, number 9. It says to us, apply a new custom conditional formatting rule to P55 through P66 to show the 4 ratings icon set. Show the icon only. Now, I don't know about you all, but when I did this the first time, I was really overwhelmed with what they just tried to tell me. But what we're doing is it's actually quite simple. It's just the instructions seem a little vague. So we're going to highlight this. And then we're going to come up here to conditional formatting and come down here to new rule. And then come down here and choose icon sets. Show icon only. And then the one we're using will be this one right here. Okay. And it says just accept the default values. You could change these. These may not work for you. So you could change these if you were doing these for a real project. You might only want to see 2 icons set here. Or you might want to see arrows. I'm sorry? Okay. So we're going to click OK and accept that. And it gives us our icons. All right, moving along. Okay, where are we at here? Number 10. It says continue working with the filtered data that has the conditional formatting applied. Sort the table first alphabetically by the values in the model column and then by the icon in the combination MPG icon column so that the signal meter with 4 filled bars appears at the top. So what you want to do is you want to be somewhere in this. Right here is the best place to be on model, and then come over here, sort by color, then choose custom sort. And then you're going to sort by model A to Z. Okay, then you're going to add another level and you're going to sort by MPG icon, and here you'll choose the conditional formatting icon, and you want to make sure you've chosen the signal meter with 4 filled bars. So as you hover over them, you see the name changes to tell you which one you should be using. Okay, now let's click OK. And even though you chose the signal meter with 4 filled bars, it's not the very first one that we see over here, because the first sort was to sort by model and then by icon. If it had been sort by icon and then by model, you would have seen 4 filled bars here first, but this model would have been totally different. This model would have been the Toyota. As you can see, it's got the 4 filled bars. I'll stop here if we have questions. Any questions on that? So what are we doing here? Well, aside from trying to annoy students, what we're trying to do is show you different kinds of ways that you can sort data and extract data using Excel. So we did our extraction up here with the criteria, and now we're doing these custom sorts by using that pop-up window. Again, that pop-up window, we got it here by sorting by color, then going to custom sort. And then we can add additional sorting levels. But again, you got to be a little bit careful about what you're sorting, because you may not see any noticeable changes to your information because it's going in order. So you can sit here and sort on all kinds of fields, these all being the field names here, but it may not make any difference because it has to go, it starts with this one then it goes to the next level, then it goes to the next level, and so on and so forth. Okay, if I'm going too fast, just tell me. Okay. So now we have done number 10. Okay, go back to the main data set at the top of the MyCar data worksheet and add subtotals for each change in model to calculate the average. So that means it wants us to be back here on this original data. And if you want to, you can go ahead and type in here the same thing that you typed below, but it's not really going to make a difference because you're not planning to use icons up here. So you can just leave it blank. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the data tab. Click somewhere inside this data before we start. Then go up here to the data tab. Then we go to the outline over here and we click on subtotal. And it says that each change in model, we want to have an average, and we want to apply that average to the air pollution score, the city MPG, the highway MPG, and the combination MPG. And you can just leave these the way they are because there's no, you don't have any current subtotals to replace at this point. And now the data has had a bunch of information applied to it. So if you see over here where it looks weird, where it says like 22, if you look at that, it's actually a very long title with the word average at the end. And here's all that new information that we didn't have before. And if you did this right, you're now down to 69 lines.
Can I ask a question really quickly?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask a quick question real quick?
Sure.
So I tried to do that, and as I'm doing it right now, do I hit anywhere inside of the data model? Or does it have to be in column P?
No, you can be anywhere up here with this subtotal. But if you feel, if it makes you feel more comfortable, lots of people will just highlight all the data. And of course, I've got all kinds of crap over here. Ignore this. Ignore this. Let me delete it.
So yeah, that's the problem I'm running into right now because it's saying I can't, it's the computer's basically saying I cannot find it. I don't know what you're talking about. So
when you highlight all of this and come down here, it doesn't know what you're talking about before you do the subtotals.
Let me try that right now. Do I go all the way over to Q and R or do I just stop at P?
No, go take it all the way over to your entire data set.
Okay. And then subtotal. Yeah. Nope.
If you're still having problems after this, we can do a screen share and you can show me what you're doing. Let's just get through number 12 and 13.
Sure. Sounds good.
So then it just wants us to collapse this. So we're just looking at the totals. I'm not really sure why, but there you go. You can see that when I clicked on number 2, it collapsed it to just show the totals. I guess just so you know how to collapse the data. But this is rather deceiving because you can't actually read it all unless you do some formatting up here where you actually highlight this information and make sure that it actually shows. Okay. So that is my car data in a nutshell. Now, number 13 wants us to use this MPG pivot table. So we'll come over here, and I'm going to delete this slicer so we can create it together. All right. So we already have a pivot table. First thing it wants us to do is to refresh the pivot table data. So because we're on a pivot table and I've clicked on a cell somewhere in the pivot table, look what happens up here on my menu at the top of the screen. When I click in the pivot table, I get these two new tabs. So I can go to pivot table, analyze, and I can click on this refresh and refresh all. And that's what it wants us to do for 13A. Then again, I'm still inside the pivot table, and I don't have to highlight the whole thing. The whole thing is already a table. So now it says apply the white pivot style medium 1. That's going to be up here on design. And as I hover over each one of these, I can see the difference, which all of these different choices, and it just wants to use this one here. But I'm going to change it to that just for a second. That one, that one. And the reason is so you can see that we can change that on a moment's notice. There we go. That's the one it wants. White pivot style medium 1. And then in 13C, it wants you to display a slicer. Again, we still have these because we're still on the table. If I'm over here, they go bye-bye. So I need to be somewhere in the table in order to get these tabs. And I'm going to come up here and choose under Analyze, insert a slicer, and I want it to be Smart Way. Clicking OK, and there's my slicer. And then I just want to choose those cars that meet this criteria of being elite. You see how the table is changing? So basically, the slicer is slicing in and grabbing the information that we would like to display. Now, that was the plan, was just to take you through 13 and let you work on 14 on your own. I'm happy to answer a few questions here before I let you go. Let me minimize this, come back, and anyone who wants to ask me questions can ask me questions. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think this is going to help you?
Definitely.
Yes, for sure.
All right, good. I like the thumbs up, Kaylee. Thank you. All right. If you have other questions, I'll stay on, but I'm going to turn off the recording, and what it'll do is it'll build, and then I should get a link that I can paste. So,
Thank you.
oh, you're very welcome.